What is up? I be Hip Gregory. Today's topic, another mass shooting, another school shooting, this one in Tennessee, where six people were murdered. Three 9-year-old students and three 60 to 61-year-old workers at the school. And this conversation is going to break down into gun control. I mean, how could it not? But first, I want to start off with this shooting is a little different because the shooter identifies as a transgender person. And people are using this as an opportunity to fearmonger and demonize against the transgender community. People like Candace Owens and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Taylor Greene said, "You can't blame guns anymore," putting the blame on transgenders. Well, with all of the mass shooting, countless amounts that have been done by white males, that has no bearing on white males as a whole. But one shooting by a transgender, you want to condemn the whole community. Out of 306 mass shootings, only four have been done by a transgender or non-binary person. That's 1.3%. That is the exception and not the rule. And you got people like Tucker Carlson and people like Ben Shapiro who are calling for the right to bear arms to be taken away from the transgender community. And these are big Second Amendment pro gun nuts. Anytime you propose common sense gun laws, they're like, oh, you're trying to take away our guns. You hear that? They're trying to take away our guns. And it turns out they're trying to take guns away from people. At least a certain type of people. Different people get treated differently than white folks. Um, the NRA never spoke up when Philando Castile was murdered by that police officer for having a legal gun. The only time the NRA supported restricting gun laws was when the Black Panther Party went to the state capitol building in '67. And Ben Shapiro said that the reason he's claiming that transgenderism is a mental illness. Now, I'm not saying that, but what I am saying that people with mental illness should not be allowed to carry guns. So is that what you're saying, Mr. Shapiro? Because Obama passed the law where if you are mentally unable to, um, or mentally unfit to take care of your finances, you cannot legally have a gun. So that's crazy that you even got to pass that type of law. But guess what? Your boy Donald Trump came and reversed that. So people who you can't trust with money in their hand, you can trust with a gun. Yeah, I mean, and people calling for common sense gun laws like background checks, which is extremely popular. And this shooter had a mental disorder, not a mental, an emotional disorder. And even their own family members didn't think that they should be able to carry a gun, but yet they were still legally able to purchase seven guns, three of them AR-15s. What do you need seven guns for? And there are people proposing a ban on assault rifles, and I see why. Because look at the damage it's done. I mean, it was made for war. It was made to take out multiple people at once. What do you need an AR-15 for? Don't tell me hunting. You're not shooting deer with an AR-15. There will be nothing left of the deer. And remember in Uvalde, Texas, that school shooting where the police officers stayed outside for over an hour while those kids were being massacred. Why did they stay outside? Because they was afraid to die. Because they was afraid of that AR-15. When a police officer murders a unknown black person, people come out and support the police officer, saying how brave they are. Well, they're not all brave, and not all the time. And I bring that up because I would never forget the parents talking about to identify their kids in Uvalde, Texas, at that school. They had to identify them by the shoes on their feet because that's how much damage an AR-15 does. And when you hear me talk about in my videos, usually you hear me, I hit both Democrats and Republicans. A lot of times I say on this issue they're the same, but not on this one. This one is the Republicans. They are by far worse. The Republican representative of Tennessee with this shooting just happened, went on CNN and said, "There's nothing we can do. We can't stop gun violence." Get this defeatist mentality out of here. I mean, I wonder, do you say that about, well, people, they're gonna get high. There's nothing you can do about it. Do you have that same feeling about abortions? That you can't stop it, so you might as well do nothing? I bet not. Democrat Jamal Bowman, he's a progressive. He was um, he was venting his frustration and calling for stricter gun laws in this country, and I can't blame him after what happened. And Republican Thomas Massey, he stops and argues with him. And Thomas Massey, the type of guy he is, he has a Christmas card with his whole family carrying, posing with AR-15s in front of the Christmas tree saying season greetings. And if you can see this picture, the guns that they have, they look like they could shoot a plane out the sky. Look like they could kill a transformer. And Massey, he has voted against every single type of gun control law proposed. And in his career, he has taken $78,000 from the NRA. You think that this affects his opinion at all? And he stops and says to Jamal Bowman that there's never been a school shooting where the teachers are armed. So you want more guns, and you want the. Don't you think the teachers have enough on their plate with it, making the itinerary? You keep defunding schools. They probably got to buy the books themselves. They're underpaid, and now you want them to be a trained assassin as well. You want them to be Jason Bourne. And what he's saying is not even true. Some of the most brutal school shootings, they had an armed officer on site, Columbine being one of them. There was an armed officer at the Parkland shooting. He was outside and he stayed outside because he was too scared to go in. Plus, over the past decade, there's been 285 killings or injuries to students by armed officers, some by accident, some on purpose. And as you imagine, this disproportionately affects black students. There's a officer in Texas who resigned after a third grader found his gun in the bathroom. This guy goes to take a dump and he leaves his gun in the bathroom. This don't sound safe to me. And you got people saying some dumb stuff, like the Fox News reporter said, "Why don't they lock the doors?" As if a shooter can't get inside a building if the door's locked. Like they ain't got windows, and the door was locked in this particular one. The guy, the shooter shot through the door. What's his name? Ted Cruz said that there should be only one entrance and one exit. So you want to make it a fire hazard. I forgot who said this. The guy said, well, a person with a gun, a knife, or a brick, if they're going to do damage, they're going to do damage. So I say, God forbid, if someone was to come into your apartment building or your school or your masjid or your church or your temple, what would you rather them have? A gun, a knife, or a brick? What could they do more damage with? What could they do more damage with? A handgun or AR-15? These folks, and when it comes to these issues, they always bring up mental illness. Where I say, well, why would you want someone with a mental illness to carry a gun? Because these Republicans, they vote down every single attempt to fund mental illness. In this past September, they tried to increase funding for mental illness in schools, and 205 Republicans voted against it. Only one voting for it, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. And the wild thing about it is these shootings, we're talking about legal guns, right? This is not even a racial issue. A lot of these people being killed is white folks and they still won't do nothing. And this is an America problem. Over 500,000 guns are smuggled into Mexico from the United States. Mexico has one gun store and they issue out less than 50 gun permits a year. 70 to 90% of all guns found at crime scenes are traced back to the United States. These guys don't want to do nothing. Do you realize too that if you put a serial number on bullets, that would make it a lot easier for these gun violent crimes to be solved? They don't want to do that. And if there were numbers on bullets, I bet you people would be more careful where they put these bullets. Make sure it's worth it. Make sure it's justified. In the United States, there are 120.5 guns for every 100 people, by far the most. Number two is Yemen with 52.8 per 100 people. And Yemen is a war-torn country. They're in the midst of a war right now, and they have less than half amount of guns that they have in the United States. And I'm not saying don't get no guns. I will get a gun too. I don't have one yet, but the amount of guns that happen in this country is crazy. And I mean, because they don't have these mass shootings in other countries. In other countries, they have mental illness. They got crime. They got poverty. They got gangs. They got violent video games. They got violent music. They got violent movies. They got everything except for the amount of guns. So you tell me what the problem is. I mean, something got to change. When is something gonna change? I'm tired of talking about it. Peace.